Nuneaton Science. This is the place to be, by the way. ESG is dead, long live social value. That's all about. I was speaking to one of the main contractors just outside, just earlier today, and they said, look, what's this thing about social value? It's all over the place. It's something we having to respond to bids with higher individual and public sector around social value. And that's a really good thing. But they're struggling with what it is and how do we deliver real social value. And I think it's really interesting that the session we just had about just touching on that. So we're going to cover that in more detail. I mentioned my name's Guy Battle, I'm the Chief Executive of Social Value Portal. We're a cloud-based platform that helps organisations measure, manage and maximise their social value. And when I talk about social value, it's kind of touched on by Sarah, it's the local economic sort of value generated through supply chain, through local spend. It is support for communities, and it is also protecting and regenerating our environment. So it's like a triple bottom line sort of issue, if you like. So whilst a lot of people associate it with apprenticeships and people, that's a good thing. It's not only about apprenticeships and people, there's a lot more to it than that. And we're going to kind of try and cover that in the next sort of half an hour or so. What we're going to discuss is three basic things. We're going to kick off with a question around what is real social value. Then we can have a conversation around collaboration and accountability. And those are three things that I think are important to speak about and then sort of unpick, if you like. So I'm joined here on the panel by three very eminent sort of contributors. We've got Michelle York from Nuneaton Science, Aaron Reid from Balfour, Beatty, and Kevin Hutchinson from SISK. SISK rather, not SISK. Get it right. And we're going to sort of just dive into that, and each of them will introduce themselves briefly on their first question, and we'll sort of get into it. So, Michelle, real value, social value. Tell us a bit about what you're doing in the supply chain and how you are delivering to real social value, if you like.
Thank you very much. So my name is Michelle York. I'm Commercial Director at Nuneaton Science, and we have a very...
Is that coming through, by the way?
I can do it now. We have a very clear ethos that we provide meaningful employment and training for people with disabilities through the sale and manufacture of science. When you're talking real value in social value, it can mean different things to different people. For us, we could look at our company and decide, is it from turnover, is it profit, is it the people that we help on a day-to-day basis? For me, it's the lives that we impact and that we change. And it's not just those that work for us and with us, it's what you class as the ripple effect can also come into play on social value. Because somebody gaining confidence, gaining the ability to work independently, to live independently, has an effect on their family, their lifestyle and their friends. And when you start getting down into the nitty-gritty of what is real value, it can mean so many things to different people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was picked up by Sarah, wasn't it? And I think that Nuneaton Science works within your supply chain,
yes.
And you're delivering value through that supply chain. But a big organisation, Balfour Beatty, you could do so many different things. There's so many elements to social value. How do you go about defining it and actually delivering it through, the major projects that you're working on?
First of all, just make an acknowledgement, because I do feel an overwhelming urge to stand up and start singing, and so if that does happen, I feel I just need to explain why I've done that. First of all, it's something about sitting on these chairs with the microphone like this. It feels a lot like some sort of steps reunion do, so I apologise. Also bedding in a new pair of glasses at the moment, which are variofocal, and so I can't quite see whether you're growling or smiling at me, so again, if I appear a bit nervous, that is why. My name is Reid. I'm Associate Director of Sustainability and Sustainable Procurement at Balfour Beatty, with the UK's favourite main contractor. Is that right? We deliver huge amounts of social value, 100 millions of pounds worth of social value through the schemes that we deliver. Some of it is incidental. We were going to do it anyway. We were going to spend that money with that local supplier. We were going to employ those people, but some of it is designs in terms of ensuring we deliver the real added value. It's hundreds of millions of pounds worth of social value that we deliver. Does it really make a difference in a meaningful way, in the same way that the work that money in science does? It's difficult to say. And for me, that's where this conversation around real value really sits, because is it the hundreds of millions of pounds of social value that we can quantify, or is it the 5, 10, 15, 20 individuals that you can employ? Is it the Kevin that Sarah spoke about earlier on in her stories? For me, it's becoming increasingly about the outcomes and the impacts that we can have on not just people's lives, but there's lots of different stakeholders in when you say, what does real value mean? Well, value to who? Well, first of all, it's value to the communities. Then it's value to those individuals and the residents within those communities. Then it's to UK PLC. Big schemes like HS2. Yes, that's about increased capacity, and yes, that's about reducing the amount of time it takes to get to Birmingham by 7.5 seconds or whatever it was. But actually, the original case, if you remember at the time, it was sold to us on the basis of the economic impact it was going to have. And so it is one of the primary kind of buying criteria. We've got to make sure we give return to UK PLC on the back of that, and that's about taking people who are long-term unemployed, people who are rehabilitating offenders, and putting them into employment, that triple work score from a social value perspective. So for me, the thing about real value is increasingly less about the numbers, and we use a wonderful methodology for calculating social value, which I may have heard of, called the National Toms and Social Value Portal. But actually, increasingly, once you take away the number, it's about how many people's eyes, how many people's faces can I look at and see that we've made a difference to their life, to their community, and to the broader economy. So for me, that's what real value is. And I did manage to not stand up and see it.
So you should all be really thankful for that. I worked for Balfour for 17 years, and I've known Aaron for most of that. I have heard him humming in the office. If he's singing his own lines of his humming, you'd be running for the exit.
So what about SISK? So how do you sort of, apart from being number 2 contractor?
So we'll go with number 1, family-owned contractor.
How do you guys define it and deliver it?
So really, I'm going to go from more personal experience than SISK in general, because I think social value is very much a personal thing to everyone. I actually did a presentation not so long ago for my directors. It was in my first 2 weeks in the business, and they asked me to explain social value to them. And I drew 2 cylinders. The first cylinder, I put a line about 98% of the way up and called it in orange underneath. This orange section is your local spend and the social value that you generate fiscally by spending that money locally. This other 2% can be split into environment, community, employment and skills, and all the stuff that actually generates the stories, it generates those personal touches to delivering social value, delivering profit, delivering the jobs. The second cylinder, I moved the orange round to about 25% of the way down, and then split out the other sections. You had employment and skills and climate action, which are very much our clients' focus. That's the really important stuff to them, to the people who they're elected into office. Therefore, it's got to be important to us to deliver it. But then there's everybody who we actually impact. There's everyone at the doors down the street, it's the local schools, and it's all the community stuff that, it leaves people with that feeling of, I'm glad that contractor actually came. Look what they did. At the start of the job, we've still got a massive hearts and minds piece to do, and it's the social value that delivers the hearts and minds.
So just sticking with that theme for a moment and just challenging it slightly. Aaron, you said that the numbers sort of whatever, it's all about the people. And I'd just like to challenge that in as much that isn't the number ultimately important, not necessarily the pound sign, which I think has a relevance because it helps people understand just the quantity of social value. And that I think is why social value has risen really fast up the agenda compared to sustainability, because people see that actually it's meaningful. There's a pound sign and there might be 25, 35, in some cases 65% of the contract. Now that's not something just to be sort of passed away and just said is incidental. But then I think is what comes after that. So just a slight challenge on the numbers there.
Yeah, I mean, it's meaningful, it matters. And you know, there's two things around the numbers and the percentages. The first thing is, we spoke about PPN 0620, around a minimum of 10%. Actually, we're already seeing anywhere up to 30% of the overall bid scores being given over to social value and sustainability. And so it definitely matters, and you need to be able to quantify what you've done and what you're going to do, and so the number matters from that perspective. The other thing is we've got contracts where we have got commitments to deliver 60%, an additional 60% of social value. So 60, an additional 60 pence for every pound that is spent with us, we must deliver. And so again, it's important to quantify social value from that perspective. But there comes a point after you've hit those targets that actually it's not about the numbers, or you reach that moment, that point of realization that actually, because you can spend so much time just chasing the number, you can forget actually.
And I guess that's where you come in, Michelle. I mean, in terms of just the delivery, because you're part of the supply chain, so you're part of that 98% that is. So let's not belittle or just say that local economic value isn't important, because it is. Because otherwise, Michelle wouldn't get in that work. It depends how it's delivered, right? But you're very much sort of at that sort of front end of delivering stuff when the money's spent with you in the supply chain, no?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because you talk about all the projects, when you talk about HS2 or some of the other ones that we've heard about over time, and it's all about the community legacy. But actually, what can be done at top level at the tier ones within the supply chain from the very start? You know, deciding to buy social, realising the power in your pocket, makes a massive difference from the get-go.
Yeah, and so has the act, this whole movement towards social value, helped you? I mean, is it sort of increased your turnover? Because is that a good thing?
It's definitely not hindered it. That's for sure. It's a great thing that's happened in January, this act, because it's creating so many amazing conversations with the people that are in this room. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sat here now. It opens doors. You know, we wouldn't be talking to those that we are. So yes, it's done a great thing, but it's also allowed us to educate people about why wouldn't you do business for good.
Yeah, I mean, there is a challenge around supply chain. I'll just come to you, Kevin, if I may, just the supply chain issue. I mean, plainly tier one, you get it, you're bidding, you've of course got to do it. What sort of state is the tier two, tier three in? I mean, Michelle aside, but where do you think they are in all of this?
It is a massive mixed bag. You know, I can give you examples. I'm going to pick on Hanson just because they're right at the front. And,
sorry, Ryan.
You know,
again.
you got Michael, aka Ryan. You know, I've worked with Hanson for 2 years, on and off, and you know they're an organisation that gets it, they deliver it. There's been collaboration where apprentices have actually been traded in and they've worked together across 6 or 7 different companies. There's other suppliers, to be fair, normally the smaller ones, and you know, I don't want to generalise too much, but there are still people out there who sort of like me brand worker, me big hole, me surfacing company, me way surfacing, and you know they're the next step in the chain. They're the ones that we now need to start bringing along on the journey, because actually they're the ones who have the greatest opportunities to go out and create that local employment, create that training. If I could just sort of step back to what we were saying about the numbers and all that side of things. For me, you can go through the tenders, what Sarah was talking about earlier, you can put all the numbers, the approaches in that you like, but it's about that pre-tender period where you sat with your clients and actually you set the job up right, and you make sure you take that time to discuss social value, discuss the right partners. You might have listed 100 partners that you're going to work with in your tender, and the client actually turns around and goes, yeah, but if you work with these 3, you can achieve a lot more.
Yeah, okay. Aaron.
Just a comment on the tier 2s and tier 3s, because this is why the quantification is so important. Because often I'll talk to a tier 2 or tier 3 and say, what are you doing around social value? Oh, we're not doing anything around social value. What does that mean? You know, we are working with that local school, and we are doing that charity work, and we are recruiting apprentices, but they just hadn't quantified or actually realised or defined it as this is actually social value. A great example of an organisation I spoke to was telling me all the different ways they work doing social value. Oh, by the way, we work with this local homeless charity. Oh, but we do that because we think it's the right thing to do. It's not about even if you're not motivated by the social value element. Very often we find that companies are doing things. The flip side of that is it's such an easy opportunity to generate social value by working with companies like Nuneaton Science. Because if you're going to buy science, why not buy them from Nuneaton Science, where you're going to get that additional social value? If you're going to buy cleaning services.
Do we have to caveat that with there are others available?
No, leave it there. Just leave it there.
If there are other organisations like Nuneaton Science that deliver that additional social value, then absolutely.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It's a no-brainer. If you're going to buy cleaning services, why not use Argonaut cleaning services, who recruit local deaf and disabled people? Why not? Because the service that you get is unaffected, but we do deliver that social value.
So let's just move on to accountability, if we may. And actually, I'll start with you, Aaron, sort of at the mic. So there's one of the challenges around it, sort of social value is during the bid, you put in a big number and you win the job, and then you've got to deliver it. And you've got this whole issue around sort of how do you ensure that what has been put in the bid actually is being delivered, and this whole accountability piece. How do you go about managing that and ensuring that sort of you're transparent about what you're doing and also what you haven't been able to do?
There's two sides to that, isn't there, I suppose. One is how are our clients holding us accountable? I mean, we're fortunate to have some of the best clients out there, but there are other main contractors, I'm sure, who have customers who don't always hold their supply chain, their tier ones, as accountable for the things that they commit for in their bids. And there's two problems with that. There's a problem for me, because we're genuinely trying to deliver this stuff and we'd like to get recognition for doing so. And it's a problem for me because there are other organisations there who aren't so genuine about delivering those commitments, and cynically, some might say, just put things in the bid knowing that it's not going to get picked up in the contract management stage. And so for us, both in terms of how we work with our customers and how we want to work with our supply chain, is making sure that contract management piece is there, not just the procurement piece. Because it's too easy just to say, oh yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do it, I'll do the other. And at the same time, we want to be held accountable. If there's things that we don't get right, we want to have the appropriate level of scrutiny that creates the mandate for us to make the necessary changes in the business. So that contract management piece is absolutely key, and for me, without it, what's the point?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Kevin, tell us about accountability. That runs the two ways, obviously.
Yeah, so the accountability coming from the client down, like I would say, it's massively important. You've also got internally, the accountability needs to start at the top. It needs to start with the directors, with the CEOs, and coming down through the company. Nick, my MD, who's speaking here yesterday, actually, he challenged one of our projects where the client hasn't set any social value targets. There's a little bit of something within the section 106. He turned around to our project and said, no, we deliver it like the rest of our jobs. This is what we expect. And that level of accountability at the top drives performance right through. The other side of it is having the right place to report the information in the right style. Some people might say you need some sort of social value portal.
Of course.
Others are available. But social value portal here. And if we can get that consistency of reporting where actually we're sharing the same numbers. We're not going, we got social value add here, we got social value impact there.
So here's the challenge to both. I'll pick it up with the show as well. Would you be prepared to publish on at the end of every project, public sector project, a sort of an account of what you originally pledged, promised, and what you've delivered? Would that be? Are you prepared to make that public on your website?
Yeah.
And is there any reason why? So you'd be happy to do that, right?
I mean, that's absolutely the direction of travel that we're moving in. The issue, to be honest, at the moment is a data issue, because it's about have we got the right information in the right place to be able to tell that story. But absolutely, that's the direction we're moving in. We measured, because we previously measured social value on individual projects, and actually last year for the first time we measured social value across the whole of Balfour. We've never done that before. And that's kind of thrown up some lessons in terms of gaps in data and that sort of a thing. But absolutely,
And you've set yourself some targets, haven't you?
we have set some targets.
So tell us about your big, audacious goal.
Yeah, audacious, hairy targets. So we have a target to generate £3 billion worth of social value by 2030, and we have no reason to believe we can't achieve that. What we do realise, though, is that we absolutely can't achieve that without our supply chain.
Yeah.
Most of what we do is delivered by our supply chain. Therefore, most of the social value that's going to be generated is going to be generated by our supply chain. If we've committed to 60% additional social value, there's no way we can do that by ourselves. So we have to work with suppliers who can deliver that social value for us, either implicitly through the nature of what they do, or through the additional social value that they generate, which is why it's so important that we tell the story as a tier 2 of what you're doing. It's not just a case of, oh, well, I do that work with the Home as charity, but I'm not doing it for that reason. Tell the story, because increasingly we're going to be selecting suppliers on the basis of the social value they can support us in demonstrating to our customers.
Great. So Michelle, bit of advice. Perhaps there's some sort of businesses out here today that kind of SMEs or in the supply chain don't have the advantage you have, which is actually your actual business model is all about delivering social value. What advice do you have to SMEs, other organisations in the audience at the moment? Just, okay, they might not have a programme, might not be designed around jobs for disabled people. What do you think they should be thinking about doing?
Talking to organisations that have, and that have experience, that have generated social value and have done it on so many different levels. Because when you're talking about, we briefly touched on accountability, we actually published our pledge for this financial year earlier on, and we have made it very transparent. We put it out there on social media, and our new website is actually tracking some of these key things at the bottom of it. So we have made a big, bold statement, not in the realms of the Balfour Beatty statement, but we have said that this financial year we aim to generate 3 million in social value, which is an increase on the year before, and we've listed how we're going to do it. In regards to advice about how you can achieve it, collaborate, talk to people, but also don't ignore the good stuff that you're doing, because you will be doing volunteer days, you will be doing money for charity, you will actually be working with your supply chain, with organisations like us and other SCs that can help you, that can point you in different directions. And don't be afraid to shout from the rooftops the good stuff that you're doing. It's a very British thing to sit back and hide it under a bushel, but actually shout about it, share the good stuff, because why not? If you can do business for good, do it.
Fantastic, good. I'm going to ask sort of questions in just a moment, but just before I do that, collaboration. When we sort of get together on this to prepare for this session, you said there's a challenge around collaboration because social value has now become a competitive element. And actually, it's where we used to collaborate around sustainability. Actually, because social values, you can win or lose on the back of it. There's less collaboration. Perhaps you can expand on that and what you think an unintended consequence of social value.
It's some of this sustainability agenda. It's clear there's nothing to be gained by competing. There's nothing to be gained by competing on climate change. It's too big. No one organisation can deal with it by themselves, and there's nothing to be gained by competing. Modern slavery is similar. It can't be resolved by one organisation. Although Croydon Council might object, I hope they're not here. Policy to eradicate modern slavery. With the PPN 0620, a minimum of 10% now for social value. So we've seen up to 30% for social value and sustainability. Main contractors win and lose jobs on way less than 10% of overall marks every day of the week. And so suddenly to have social value be almost the key determining differentiator. When we go into collaborative forums like the Supply Chain Sustainability School, we're all happy sharing on all these different agendas, and we set up work around social value, and there is science, because there's a recognition that actually my approach that I'm developing will be the thing that keeps me in work and keeps my organisation in work. So actually I don't want to tell you what I'm doing around social value, and I don't know how you unpick that, because I think there's a definite piece where we're collaborating down our supply chains and working very heavily with the supply chain on social value. But actually, will I collaborate with Scanstor on social value? Well, I know it's a thing that's going to win me the next bid.
Yeah, that's it. You've got Kevin, and then I'll bring in Michelle.
No, I was just going to say, maybe there's something that can be done around the collaboration piece actually in the tender question itself. So actually asking how will you collaborate with wider industry, etc., etc. I think that's potentially something yourself can help influence.
Absolutely. We could do that, that's for sure. I think there is a potential collaboration. That just happened today, in as much that you're Michelle here sitting here from Nuneaton side. So the fact that you are recommending that Nuneaton sites could be used by SISK and by others there's an element of opportunity there, isn't there? I'm just wondering whether the collaboration sort of framework, just picking up on what you said, Kevin, should be set at Highways sort of UK, Highways England level, in as much that it does strike me that there is a massive opportunity for a strategic approach to set up strategic programs that each tier one could get involved in at the sort of a client level, given that they're spending 28 billion over this period, or whatever the number is, 32. So there is potential to that. Jump in.
So there's actually already one of those initiatives running within National Highways. I'm quite fortunate that I actually run an education group which has got somewhere in the region of about 18 members. We've added another one today. You don't realise that they're definitely doing it yet, but they are. But there's other members other than SISK. Balfour, Beatty are part of it. You've got Kias, Skanska, Morgan Sindel. There's going to be others who are sat in the audience who I don't name and I've missed them, and I really do apologise. But our entire aim is attract more young people into the construction industry. We've been working on careers engagement pieces and work experience.
So there's some areas that collaborate. Let me just, before Aaron, you just wrap up on that one, Michelle. So just you're happy there's competition though, because you're getting more work, aren't you? I mean, that's a good thing from your perspective.
I think it's creating awareness of what social value is, which is never going to be a bad thing, and it's showcasing the works that we do along with the other organisations and the benefits of trading with social enterprises. So it's never going to be a bad thing to have competition. It's just making sure that it's going in the right direction.
And I'll bring in questions just after Aaron's answer. So if anyone, do we have another roving mic? Yeah.
Just on that collaboration point. I mean, I'm speaking generally across all the different sectors that we operate in. I think actually in highways it's not too bad. National Highways are about to bring out. I don't like to talk about this. Okay. National Highways are about to launch something called I think it's called the Supply Development System, which is a whole approach to enable collaboration across all of the suppliers, tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, to move people in a general direction. So I think they are at least attempting to address it, and I know they're about to bring forward their whole strategy around social value. So I think, I speak generally, but I think within highways, actually, we're not in a bad place in terms of collaboration.
Well, why don't we ask this gentleman here to just tell us, all about this thing from highways, see? So just be really interesting as we're here now. Just quickly,
Very briefly,
could you put the mic a bit closer?
the 8 main contractors are going to develop the downstream supply chain together. So we are putting in the plan to talk about social values. I think Aaron's right, there's a danger that we'll compete, but we're actually trying to get the culture into the sharing open contractor rather than closed contractor. So I think that is a programme launched by National Highways that starts this month.
Fantastic, that's great. Okay, questions from the audience. We've got one here, Ryan, and then over there. You've got it first. Sorry, Ryan next. If you just say who you are, what business you're from, then fire your question.
Morning, I'm James from Roadways. We're a national servicing and civils contractor based in the south of England. But what I say to my guys is we sell asphalt surfacing, civil engineering. We also sell innovation, sustainability and social value, and they're all kind of equal status.
Yeah.
I really want to sort of give credit to Balfour. We work for them in Southampton, and it's the first time we've ever seen a proper tender that really gives true score of value to social value, to innovation.
What was the weighting of that?
High, really high.
You don't remember off the top of your head?
I mean,
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
At the time. It was significant.
30% social value, 30%
Wow.
sustainability, those kind of levels, and they're really making the decisions and the buying decisions on those basis. And we've benefited from that. We're doing a lot of recycling. And
So it's not only the client that should be doing this, the highways England, if you like. Actually, it's the tier ones and even the tier twos who have got tenders out there that you want to see it cascading all the way down.
Yeah, the difficulty is that our addressable market, with the proposition that I just set out for you, is about 20% of everybody else's, because 80% of people still want it cheap and dirty. And it's a bit of chicken and egg for SMEs like us, because it's the right thing to do. We're not going to stop, but it's hugely expensive in a market where a lot of people are making 2 to 3% net profit, and you're spending 5% on sustainability and programs and all those kind of things. We need cash flow, with small companies.
Yeah, Alan, just comment on that.
You can see the direction of travel, and I think tech may be responsible for that tender who's in the room. Actually, we're working very hard to integrate social value into procurement. But Balfour's lead, others will follow. They already are, and you see the direction of travel. And so, don't be discouraged by the other 80%, because you're going to be ahead of the curve when they start embedding it in procurement in the way that we and others are. So,
good. Question from down here, Ryan.
It's Ryan Murphy from Aston UK. Sort of question, sort of separately. Just in relation to your conversation about collaboration across tier ones, for the likes of us, to look at material supplier, it can be a challenge when you're working with lots of different businesses who have their own agenda for social value, and they want to achieve what they want to achieve, and so they come to us and say, we want you to do this, we want you to do this, we want you to do this. But then every single one of them says the same thing. So as much as you want to do the right thing, you're being pulled in all these different directions, which can make it a real challenge. It would be great to see collaboration at that level, and to be built. We're just as guilty. We can collaborate with our competitors too. But I think there needs to be more open discourse about how we can work together.
I think this theme that's been picked up. Are there any other questions or comments from the floor? Yeah.
Just while moving the mic over, just to pick up on the sort of point before Ryan's, some of it is also down to the way that the tenders are formatted. So, we still see tenders coming in where, yes, the social value questions are being asked, but you can tell that the price is still the driver. And it's very often that tender from the client level then drives the behaviour of the contractor, and subcontractor further on down.
It's been a slope. Just as a sort of a note, the Social Value Act came out in 2012, and it still kind of feels like summer ahead, but actually it's still quite a young conversation. It's 10 years old, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And it should be a lot further.
They've had to wear hard hats on site since before I was born, and that's still a struggle.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yes, sir.
So my question builds on, I can't remember what your name is, sorry, but it's a similar question, but it's from the perspective of someone working in a procurement supply chain role. How do you think we can incentivise the right outcomes through the ITT process, through the whole procurement process and the contract management process, without overheating the supply chain, the shared supply chain that we use? Obviously, we all use similar suppliers, because obviously there is a variance in the quality of the ITT questions across the industry.
So I guess the question is, I'm just conscious of time, I've got to end in just a couple of minutes. What do you want to see in the ITT, Michelle? And they can't say Nuneaton science.
Nuneaton science is your preferred science supplier would be great, but realistically, in the ITT, don't make it too woolly. Be very clear with what you're wanting the information back on, how you want to achieve it, because it can be very woolly that we get questions, how are you producing social value? Which is great, but it seems to be a bit of a tick box exercise, if I'm honest, because how are you producing social value and you've been given 500 words or something? Actually, we can produce reams and reams of that data. I think we need to drill it down in the ITTs a bit more.
Okay, fine. I'm really sorry, we've run out of time, but we can pick it up afterwards. I could go on and on. So in the last minute, you've each got 20 seconds. 5 years on now, we're now 2025. What do you want to see, Kevin, around social value? What do you want to...
It's to actually see a bit more of what Michelle just said, the questions being more bespoke, actually looking at what we can get out of it without just saying, how are you going to do social value? Because you see way too much of that coming down. Like, also, the rewards coming back the other way. You mentioned, Ted mentioned about the ITT and driving incentivisation. Well, there's the social value awards, but actually each client, each local authority, you know, they can drive their own, and I think better behaviours are driven by incentivisation.
Okay, 20 seconds.
A minimum of 20 to 30% additional social value delivered on all publicly procured construction and infrastructure contracts, full stop. No competition, minimum of 20 to 30% to even be up to play.
Okay, great. Michelle?
Every company to produce social value in some way. There's no reason that every company out there that's sat in the room or that you pass on the high street, there's no reason that every organisation that trades cannot produce social value in some form.
Good. Okay, you heard it here. 2025 will come back and we'll check out, see what's happened. So let me thank my panel, Michelle, Aaron and Kevin. Really good discussion. Sorry for the Thank you very much. That was really interesting, really engaging. Thank you for the question as well. So we've got a very short